Imagine a man who never loses a single argument. Imagine what he must know to attain such invincibility. Imagine the level of thinking that must give him that edge. You're about to discover how this man, called Socrates, never lost a single debate in his entire life. And no, it wasn't because he was smarter than everyone else. It was because he knew something that 99% of people still don't understand today. While his opponents were busy trying to sound intelligent, Socrates was doing something completely different, something so simple. It sounds almost stupid when you first hear it. He was asking questions, not just any questions. 7 specific questions that had a strange effect on people. Grown men would start answering confidently, then slow down, then pause, then realize mid-sentence they had no idea what they were talking about. Their entire worldview would collapse right there in public, not because Socrates attacked them, but because he made them attack themselves. Here's what nobody tells you. These 7 questions still work. Right now, on anyone, your boss, your partner, that stranger on the internet who hides behind his phone thinking he knows everything, even on yourself. And once you learn them, you can't unsee how many people are walking around completely confident in beliefs they've never actually examined. But here's my warning. This isn't a party trick. This is a scalpel. Use it carelessly and you'll make needless enemies. Use it wisely and you'll see through every weak argument, every manipulation, every half-truth anyone tries to sell you. So if you're ready to think at a level most people never reach, smash that like button. Because what I'm about to show you doesn't just help you win arguments. It makes most arguments irrelevant. Let me show you why questions are more powerful than statements. When you make a statement, you expose yourself. You build a tower of words that anyone can attack. But when you ask a question, you're invisible. You can't lose when you ask. Here's the edge most people miss. Arguments activate the ego. Questions activate the brain. The moment someone has to defend their position, walls go up. But when you ask them to explain, they escort themselves into their own contradictions. Socrates knew this 2,400 years ago. The human ego will do anything to be right. So instead of attacking it, he invited people to explain themselves. And when they reached the end of their logic, they discovered they'd been standing on sand the entire time. Before we get into the 7 questions, understand this. These aren't tricks. They're tools. Use them to manipulate people, and you become the worst kind of person. Use them to seek truth, and you become dangerous in the best way possible. Let's begin. Question 1. What makes you so certain of that? As basic as this sounds, this is where you separate believers from thinkers. Most people don't have beliefs. They have borrowed opinions. They heard something on social media, read it in a headline, saw it in a comment section, and now they'll defend it like it's a blood oath. Ask someone why they believe what they believe and watch what happens. They'll say, everyone knows that, or it's just common sense, or I saw a video about it. That's not certainty. That's social contagion. When you ask, what makes you so certain? You're forcing them to trace their belief back to its source. And most of the time, there is no source. Just repetition, just comfort, just fear of being wrong. Here's a real example. Someone tells you, college is the only way to be successful. Don't argue, just ask. What makes you certain that's true for everyone? Watch them stumble. They'll mention their parents, their teachers, society, but they won't mention evidence, because they've never examined it. Epictetus said it best, it's impossible to learn what you think you already know. This question destroys that illusion. It forces people to admit they've been operating on autopilot. When you use this in your own life, ask yourself first, what makes me so certain I need this person's approval? What makes me so certain I can't do this? you'll be shocked how many of your limitations are just unexamined assumptions. Question 2. What evidence would change your mind? This is the fine line between the wise and the foolish. A rational person says, "Show me better evidence and I'll adjust." A fool says, "Nothing could ever change my mind." The moment someone says nothing could change their view, you've already won. Because they just admitted they're no longer thinking. They're protecting their ego. Try this in real life. Someone says, "Cryptocurrency is a scam." You ask, what kind of evidence would make you reconsider? If they say, "Nothing, I'll never change my mind," you're done. You're not talking to a mind anymore. You're talking to a wall. This question is a filter. It separates people who want truth from people who want to feel right. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." Most people are insane. Not because they're stupid, but because they refuse to update their beliefs when reality changes. That's 3 questions down. If you're already seeing how powerful this is, drop a like on this video. It tells me you're actually paying attention. Now, let's move to the next level. Question 3. Can you give me a specific example? Grand statements collapse the moment they meet reality. Someone says, "People today are so entitled." Ask them, "Can you give me a specific example?" Watch the generalization crumble. They'll say, "Well, just like everyone, number." Not everyone. They're describing a feeling, not a fact. This question is a spotlight. It forces vague opinions into concrete territory, and most opinions can't survive there. Here's why this works. The brain loves shortcuts. It loves making sweeping judgments because it saves energy. They say, "All politicians are corrupt. All women are heartbreakers. This generation is doomed." These are lazy thoughts dressed up as insights. When you ask for a specific example, you're demanding precision, and precision kills lazy thinking. Seneca understood this. He said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most arguments aren't about reality, they're about imagined patterns. Force someone to get specific, and the pattern falls apart. Use this at work. Someone says, "This project is impossible." Ask them, "Can you show me exactly where it breaks down?" Suddenly, it's not impossible. It's just difficult at step 3. That's solvable. See the difference? Question 4. What are you assuming to be true? Every argument is an iceberg. What you see is 10%. What's hidden beneath those invisible assumptions, that's the other 90%. When someone says, "I need to make more money to be happy," beneath that statement are 3 assumptions. 1, that happiness is something you buy. 2, that you don't have enough now. 3, that money is the variable that changes everything. Pull out any one of those assumptions, and the entire argument collapses. This question is surgical. It cuts straight to the foundation nobody ever examines. Marcus Aurelius practiced this relentlessly. Every night he'd write down his thoughts and examine his assumptions. Am I assuming this person meant harm? Am I assuming I know what they're thinking? Am I assuming tomorrow will be like today? Most people never do this. They just accept their assumptions as reality. And then they wonder why they're miserable. Real-life application. Your partner says, "You never listen to me." Before you defend yourself, ask, "What are you assuming listening looks like?" Maybe they assume listening means agreeing. Maybe they assume it means dropping everything immediately. Uncover the assumption and you'll solve the real problem. In your own life, ask yourself, what am I assuming about this situation? You'll find that most of your stress comes from assumptions, not facts. That's 4 down, 3 more to go. And the next one is counterintuitive, but game-changing. Question 5. How would someone who disagrees with you explain their position? This separates the shallow from the wise. If you can't accurately describe your opponent's viewpoint, you don't understand the issue. You're just defending your team. Someone says capitalism is the best system. You ask, how would someone who disagrees explain why it isn't? If they say they're just jealous or they don't understand economics, they've failed. They've never actually listened to the other side. They've only built a strawman and called it victory. Marcus Aurelius taught his son this principle. To understand your opponent's argument better than they understand it themselves, that is mastery. This isn't about being nice. This is about intellectual honesty. The strongest position is the one that can withstand the strongest counter-argument. Weak minds avoid opposition. Strong minds seek it out. Try this at work. Before you pitch an idea, ask yourself, what would someone who thinks this is a terrible idea say? Then address those points preemptively. You'll be 10 times more convincing because you've already neutralized the objections. This question builds empathy, but it also builds unshakable logic. Question 6. What would happen if everyone thought this way? This is the ultimate test. Socrates called it reductio ad absurdum. You take an idea and push it to its logical extreme. If it collapses, it wasn't a principle, it was just an excuse. Someone says, I'm just going to do what makes me happy as long as I'm not hurting anyone. Sounds reasonable, right? Ask, if everyone only did what made them happy, what happens to sacrifice, responsibility, long-term thinking? Suddenly, that beautiful idea starts to crack. Immanuel Kant built his entire moral philosophy on this question. He called it the categorical imperative. An action is only moral if it could become a universal law. If lying worked when everyone did it, then maybe lying is okay. But lying only works because most people tell the truth. The moment everyone lied, trust would disappear and society would fall apart. So, lying was never moral. It was just feeding off the honesty of truth. Real-life example. Someone says, I'm skipping the gym today. I deserve a break. Ask, if you took a break every time you felt like you deserved one, where would you be in a year? That question hits different, because you just made them confront the long-term consequences of their short-term excuse. Use this on yourself, constantly. If I made this choice every day, who would I become? That's the question that separates boys from men. Question 7. What problem are you actually trying to solve? This is the most overlooked question, and it's the most important. Most arguments aren't about what people say they're about something deeper. Someone argues with you about taking out the trash. That's not about trash. That's about feeling unappreciated. Someone argues about your career choice. That's not about the job. That's about their fear of you failing. When you ask, what problem are you actually trying to solve? You cut through the surface-level noise and get to the real issue. And most of the time, once you solve the real problem, the argument disappears. Epictetus taught this. People are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. The argument is never the argument, it's what the argument represents. Use this everywhere. In relationships, are we arguing about dishes or are we arguing about respect? At work, are we debating the budget or are we debating who has authority? With yourself, am I scared of failure? Or am I scared of what people will think if it happens to me? This question ends arguments by revealing they were never necessary in the first place. Conclusion. That's all 7, but here's what most people miss. These questions aren't weapons, they're mirrors. Socrates didn't use them to humiliate people, he used them to free people from their own mental prisons, and if you're going to use these, you need to follow his rules. Rule 1. Intellectual humility. You don't have all the answers. If you ask these questions thinking you're superior, you've already lost. Ask because you want to understand, not because you want to conquer. Rule 2. Sincere curiosity. Don't ask to trap someone. Ask because you genuinely want to see where their logic goes. The moment you weaponize curiosity, it stops being philosophy and starts being manipulation. Rule 3. Collaborative truth-seeking. You're not the judge. You're a fellow traveler. These questions should lead both of you closer to the truth, not just make you feel smart. Socrates was executed because he asked too many questions. Not because he was wrong, because he was right, and the people in power couldn't handle it. That's the risk you take when you start thinking clearly. You become dangerous, not to others, to illusions. And this world runs on illusions. So if you're going to use these 7 questions, use them wisely. Use them to awaken, not to destroy. Here's your final challenge. Take these 7 questions and use them on yourself first. Before you point them at anyone else, point them at your own beliefs. What makes me so certain of this? What evidence would change my mind? What am I assuming? How would someone who disagrees explain this? What if everyone thought like me? What problem am I actually trying to solve? Do this for 1 week, and you'll understand yourself better than 99% of people ever will. If you made it this far, it shows you found this strategy powerful. I can feel it from here. You have one more thing to do. Smash that like button if you haven't, and share this video with someone who's ready to think differently. Not everyone will understand this, and that's fine. This isn't for everyone. This is for the few who would rather be right than comfortable. The few who seek wisdom over applause. Comment below with 3 words. I choose clarity. Let that be your commitment, to question, to think, to grow. Because the person who masters these 7 questions doesn't just win arguments, they transcend them entirely.